Ever just stop and wonder, why are we so drawn to conflict or to desire or to these powerful, all-consuming beliefs? Well, today we're going to crack open the primal code that's running in the background of our lives. We're talking about the invisible instincts that shape everything, from the shows you binge watch to the leaders you decide to follow. All right, let's just dive right in with a question that I think you've probably felt, even if you haven't put it into words. Why do we as a culture seem to celebrate aggression? I mean, really think about it. The swagger you hear in music, the epic fights in movies, the nonstop drama online. What is it about that kind of behavior that just grabs our attention?
To really get to the bottom of this, we first have to take a hard look at what our society actually puts up on a pedestal. And this isn't just about what you or I personally like. It's about the powerful, often subconscious messages we are all soaking in every single day.
So, what we see is this constant clash. On one side, you've got these intellectual values, right? Things like compassion, understanding, respect. But on the other side, you've got what's called hawabazi in Hindi, which is basically just showboating. It's all about aggression, dominance, making a big scene. And let's be real, one of these two grabs our collective attention way, way more easily.
And here's the kicker, the crucial point. Society basically runs on this giant feedback loop. Whatever behaviors get the biggest reward, whether it's fame, money, or just pure attention, those are the behaviors that people start to copy. It's a simple idea, but it is an incredibly powerful force in our world.
And you see this feedback loop literally everywhere. You see it in hit songs that make recklessness sound cool, in blockbuster movies that champion this kind of toxic masculinity, in online feuds where the loudest, most aggressive person wins. You even see it in how a single sport can completely dominate a nation's dreams and aspirations. We celebrate it, so we get more of it. Simple as that.
Okay, but that still leaves the biggest question hanging in the air, right? Why? Why are we drawn to this stuff in the first place? Well, the answer isn't really in our modern culture. No, it's buried much deeper, in a much older, more powerful operating system, our primal human code. So the first of our two core instinctual drives, and this is according to thinkers like, Sigmund Freud, is violence. Now, we don't really like to admit it, but it's a natural, hardwired part of who we are. It's a throwback to our evolutionary past, all about survival and dominance. And that second core drive? Yup, it's sex. It's the engine of all reproduction, this incredibly powerful force that shapes our behavior, our art, our desires, and it often does it in ways we don't even consciously realize.
Now, this part is absolutely key. Violence and sex are like our brain's factory default settings. They appeal to the biggest audience because they are pure instinct. You don't need an education to feel them. But things like intellect, compassion, respect, that's like new software. We have to consciously choose to install it and then put in the work to run it. It takes effort. And you've got to understand, this code, it wasn't written last week or even last century. It is a deep, deep echo from our evolutionary past, from a time when the rules for just staying alive were brutally, brutally simple. This timeline just puts everything into such sharp perspective. I mean, look at that. We have millions of years of programming, all geared towards survival and reproduction, just running our brains. But we've only had about 10,000 years of civilization trying to put some rules on top of it. We are literally running ancient software on modern hardware. And, well, it causes a lot of glitches. This biological reality created a massive split in our evolutionary strategy. For males, the investment to pass on your genes could be super low. But for females, with a 9-month pregnancy and then years of raising a helpless child, the investment was incredibly high. And this one simple difference, it changed everything. Because females had so much more to lose, they became extremely picky about their partners. And the result of that is just staggering. Archaeological evidence suggests that maybe half of all men in our entire evolutionary history never reproduced at all. And this created this immense evolutionary pressure for the other men to develop traits that would get them chosen. Things like intelligence, creativity, a sense of humor, and, yes, even compassion. So, let's fast forward to today. How does all this ancient drama play out now? Well, our primal brains have become the perfect target for the modern attention economy. Our instincts aren't just for survival anymore. Now they're for sale. See, our brains are wired to chase a little chemical called dopamine. It's the reward we get for doing something good for our survival. But here's the thing. Social media has hacked that system. It delivers tiny hits of this feel-good chemical for almost zero effort. It is, without a doubt, the cheapest dopamine in human history. We all know this feeling, right?
We know it's often a complete waste of time. We know we sometimes feel worse after we do it. So why is it so incredibly hard to just look away? Well, the answer is because these platforms are not just entertainment. They are meticulously designed addiction machines.
It's basically a triple threat. First, you've got the variable rewards. The endless feed keeps us swiping like we're at a slot machine, never knowing if the next post will be funny, sad, or shocking. Second, it feeds our inner voyeur, that natural curiosity to peek into other people's lives. And third, we start to develop these parasocial relationships, these one-sided emotional bonds with creators that make us feel like we actually know them. It's a perfect storm for our primal brain.
And this exploitation of our basic human wiring, well, it finds its ultimate form in the creation of cult-like followings. This is where our deep need for belonging and belief gets channeled into something far more powerful and, honestly, potentially dangerous.
And the source material lays out this surprisingly simple toolkit for how it's done. First, you need an enemy to unite everyone against, and us versus them. Then, you need a simple motto that requires no critical thinking. You need a charming leader whose word is basically law. And finally, a rigid hierarchy, so everyone knows their place and doesn't ask questions. This formula, it works for everything from political movements to wellness gurus. So we've seen how our ancient brains are being played like a fiddle in the modern world. And this brings us to one final, really profound question. Are we just stuck with this programming forever, or can we actually evolve beyond it? Well, from a purely biological standpoint, the argument is that we've kind of hit a plateau. We're not likely to grow wings or start breathing underwater anytime soon. Our physical evolution has slowed to a crawl. But then you get this idea from the philosopher Osho, and it points to a totally different path. If we can't really evolve outwardly anymore, maybe the only real journey left is an inward one, the journey to understand our own programming and become ourselves. And that's the provocative thought I want to leave you with, that maybe our greatest challenge as a species isn't conquering outer space, but conquering our own inner space, becoming truly aware of that ancient code for violence and sex that's running us, and then, with great conscious effort, choosing to write a new one.